Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server and it's time to have a look at a new battleship that is coming in for the Italian naval forces. This is the good old RN Francesco Caracciolo, and you may see there in the name there's something a bit interesting. This is a project, and what that means is this machine was never finished. So this is something which is going to exist in the game in how it should have existed, but never existed in that way. That's basically how it works. So this is a battleship for Italy. It's going to be at rank 6, and it's going to be before the Conte di Cavour. So if you are a person who is grinding the Conte, might be worth getting it right now. The Francesco is very much a First World War battleship. You can see from the way it's kind of set up, it's very much a First World War setup. So it has access to 4 381mm dual cannons. These are exactly the same, if I remember, to the British 15-inch guns. They are at least the same size, and they're from 1914. The vehicle can fire at 2 rounds a minute when you have an ace crew, and also has some interesting secondary armaments. You can see here you have 12 152mm single cannons, and they are all sat on top of the turrets. So you'll have people sat on the turrets. Can you imagine actually doing that and the vibrations that would be there? There's no way that you would be able to sit on the turret and fire these. Then you also have 6 102mm guns as well. These are... Oh, sorry, I kind of screwed it up. My bad. So the 152s are down here in the sides, which I suppose makes more sense. And then the 102mm are actually on the turrets. So that's how that's set up. There's also a set of 40mm guns, single-mounted Vickers Turney ones, which are in here, and they're all over the boat too, to give you a little bit of hope at destroying aircraft. And to be honest, this thing isn't really designed to destroy aircraft. This is very much like a spawn first, shoot battleships kind of deal, instead of the other way around. So on the X-ray, you can see once again, it has a ton of shells in this area, but surprisingly, there is no shells around the ammo elevator. I found this really weird when we had a look at it in the files, and I still think it's really odd to see it like this. And then also over here you have kind of the same thing, where you have the actual storage and then you have the elevators next to the storage in that fashion. So yeah, it also is powered by a ton of tiny engines. Usually on these larger ships, what you see is like massive engines with huge transmissions on them, but for some reason on this ship, there's just a bunch of diddy ones that are all around, and they all have their own individual smoke funnels that all come into these sets of 8, which are up here. This is like beautifully modeled, but it just seems so crazy. Also, it has some fuel tanks, so there's no coal bunkers on this thing. Instead, it is just standard oil. Then you have a belt of 300mm of armor, rolled cemented. You only have 24 below the waterline, and then 220 as a belt above, with 150 above that. On the actual turrets themselves, you have 400mm on the front of them, and then 300mm on the ammo elevators, and then 340 plus 300 on the bridge, keeping that going too. Surprisingly, on this vehicle, you actually have pretty much armor all over it. Usually there are kind of like holes in areas, but you can see here with the Caracciolo, it actually has armor even all the way to the front, which is just absolutely nuts. Then for the actual rangefinder, I feel like there has to be more than just this rangefinder. It's kind of weird how you have these fire directors and rangefinders, and there's only one of them on each. That's it. That must be quite easy to take out. But this one is quite slow. But the other one, which is right here, this is more up to date. So 15 seconds calculation time, 8 seconds solution time. So not really different compared to everything else. Looking at the main guns, it's 381mm, and you only get 1 round, the SAPCBC, so you don't have to research anything. You get your best round straight off the back, and you don't have to pay to fire it. That's quite nice. The explosive mass is nearly 40 kilos, and it pens 437, 349, 173, so not as much as other rounds that we see around this BR, but the amount of explosive mass is pretty impressive actually. Usually they are a lot smaller in the kgs with that additional penetration. The 102mm have HETF, so I'm guessing they're supposed to be more anti-air. And then the 152s, you get access to a HE with 5 kilos of explosive mass, and then also you get access to an APHE, which pens 200mm with 2.62 kilos of explosive mass. So these guns, they don't penetrate as much as compatriots, but I tell you what, they have a hell of a punch in them. So if you are able to penetrate stuff with this vehicle, you'll absolutely massacre it, and that actually sounds really cool. That's something that you find a lot with some of the German First World War battleships and battlecruisers. They don't have like the biggest guns, or they don't have the most penetration, but they just for some reason have a ridiculous amount of explosive filler in their rounds. And this one seems kind of the same. And, you know, everybody's talking about how Italy at the high echelons doesn't have a lot of options, doesn't have a lot of cool stuff. Well, here's one that they have, and hopefully people will enjoy. And if, you know, they have vehicles like this that are kind of like sat around or being worked on, then that means that more vehicles that obviously never existed can be put into the game too. And this is something that seems to be unique for Naval at the moment. Don't think it will stay unique to Naval. I think in general it will change over time. You can see the guys on the guns there, just like sat on the sat on the turret. One of the things for Naval is the simple fact that you have a setup where, because a lot of these ships cost so much money, and also because of the fact that so many countries were involved in it, then you have the Washington Naval Treaty and all of these other things. A lot of them have like projects, or they have ideas, but they just never actually finished them or never got through with them. But once they started actually working on them, then as long as Gaijin has like a plan for that in the game, they can obviously add them. And this adds to the balance of the tech trees. This adds to the ability for Gaijin to add more stuff to the game, and also basically gives people more chance to experience parts of history that may not have, you know, come to be. And as War Thunder goes on, as War Thunder increases in terms of its size, that's something that's just going to have to be embraced, you know. And with Naval, it's been embraced a long time ago, and with aviation and ground, it's probably going to be the same at some point too. So hopefully you enjoy this new Italian battleship. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tullio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.